All right, let's do this. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Post-Production Podcast. This is the place where we take a thoughtful, honest look at what it means to build a business and a life that fits us and our vision for ourselves right here in Abu Dhabi, especially when most of us are so far away from home. I'm your host, Christy Verbrugge-Post, and I am so glad you're here. Today's episode is going to feel a little bit more personal. I know that it hits a little closer to the heart for me for sure, and I have a sneaky suspicion that it'll strike a chord with many of you too. Whether we like to admit it or not, this is definitely something that comes up often, and in this episode, I'm committed to sharing all of my feelings and beliefs with you, not only for full transparency, but also because I strongly believe that by talking about it openly, you may not feel so alone anymore. And most of you know that one of my strong philosophies is, if this helps just one person, it's worth talking about. So here goes. Today, we're talking about confidence, but not just business confidence, rather confidence in who we are, as in today, right now. But here's the kicker. We're talking about how that confidence directly shapes how our children may come to see themselves. I want to talk about the things that we say when we think that we're being honest or humble. Things like, don't be like me, or I've messed up so much, or I waited too long, or I didn't get it right. I can't tell you how many times I've said those things, not only to myself, but more importantly to my daughter. Maybe you've said something like them too. And while they may seem like wisdom or warnings at first, the things that are meant to protect our children from repeating our own life mistakes, they could actually be doing more harm than good. They could actually be reshaping their perceptions and beliefs, not only of us as their mothers and their role models, but their beliefs about themselves as well. I've been doing a little bit of exploring around this in the past few days because during a conversation where I admitted to a friend that I regularly told my daughter that I don't want you to be like mommy, I was very gently and graciously told by said dear friend that that wasn't cool, either for me or my daughter. In my little bit of research and exploration on why we engage in this behavior, I came across a few things. The first is a whole body of theory and science that shows us something really powerful, and that's that our children don't just listen to us, but they mirror us. They absorb who we are. That includes what we say about ourselves. And in turn, this has the potential to become the language that they use about themselves. My fears, my doubts, my hesitations about myself, my life, my business, my skills, etc., they act as echoes that bounce off the walls and into my kids' psyche. So let's start with social learning theory. This is a concept that's rooted in psychology, and it tells us that most of what children learn, especially early on, they learn by observing, not just by listening to instructions or reading a book, but by watching how we live. That means how we talk about our work, how we handle failure, how we treat ourselves when we're tired or unsure. If our children see us shrug off our own accomplishments or belittle the things that we're building, what do they learn about value or about pride or about what's worth showing up for? Then there's my friend, Mr. Imposter Syndrome, that creepy, crawly feeling that we're all familiar with. It's what tells us that we're all kinds of not enoughs, not qualified enough, not experienced enough, not pretty enough, not doing enough. It's common among entrepreneurs, even more so among women, and especially among mothers who are reinventing themselves like you and I, right? Maybe you've stepped away from a traditional job to care for your family. Maybe you're starting a business in this brand new country we now call home. You're navigating unknown waters, trying to rebuild an identity in the in-between, and it's so easy in those moments to default to downplaying and letting Mr. Imposter Syndrome play with your emotions and your sense of self-worth. Saying things like, it's just a side thing, or I'm trying something small, While those things can be true, think about whether or not you're saying it to minimize the true value of what you're trying to accomplish, or if it really is no big deal. My strong suspicion is that 99.9% of the time, it's us minimizing the value of the amazing things that we're trying to accomplish and not giving ourselves enough credit for trying our best and showing up for ourselves and our clients and our kids and so many other people. But what if our kids hear and internalize the things that we say as, when a woman tries something new, she should be humble and quiet about it? Let's take it one step deeper by looking at generational self-image. Many of us were raised in homes, cultures, or communities where modesty wasn't just encouraged, but it was absolutely expected. Don't boast. Don't act too proud. Maybe you heard, "Who do you think you are?" or little looks of disapproval or suspicion when you tried to shine a little. Over time, that shapes how we present ourselves. It teaches us to dim our light to make others comfortable or to hold more space for them than we would for ourselves and our accomplishments. And guess what? We have the tendency to pass that along. Even if we tell our daughters that they can be anything they want, if we model the opposite, what do they really believe? This leads me into cognitive dissonance. That's that internal tug of war between what we say we believe and how we actually behave. We might say to our kids, "You're so capable. You can do anything, be anything, reach for your dreams." But when we hesitate to speak up about our own ideas, or we talk ourselves down when someone's complimenting us, that gap between our words and our actions often gets noticed by our children. And over time, it can lead to confusion for them. If mom doesn't believe in her own voice or herself, should I believe in my own voice or my own self? And finally, something a little bit sciencey: mirror neurons. These are the parts of our brains that light up when we observe someone else in their moments of joy, shame, confidence, or doubt. It's how we feel what others are feeling. It's empathy, but on a cellular level. And our children's mirror neurons are constantly firing in our presence. They're feeling what we feel about ourselves while hearing what we say about ourselves. This matters, like, a lot. So today we're going to break all of this down. We'll look at how we can start to diminish ourselves less, how we can speak about our own journeys with kindness and compassion, and how to model the kind of confidence that doesn't demand perfection, that holds space for being human beings who make mistakes and veer off course and fall down and feel shame. But at the end of the day, we find that confidence in the fact that we're still standing. We made it through all of the aforementioned blunders, and we charge ahead, one messy step at a time. Because if we want to raise a generation of confident, grounded, and self-assured young people, then we have to practice being that ourselves. Even if it's messy, even if it's late, even if we're still learning how. So, if you're ready, take a deep breath, grab yourself a cup of coffee or your favorite cup of something, and let's dive in. Let's start by diving deeper into that first concept I mentioned, social learning theory. If you recall, this is the idea that children learn primarily from observing the behavior of others, especially their parents. Most of us weren't taught how to speak kindly to ourselves. In fact, many of us were taught quite the opposite, that self-criticism can keep us humble, that downplaying our achievements is polite, and that talking about our accomplishments is somehow arrogant. Let's have a look at a shocking example of confidence that Sheryl Sandberg shared in her book, Lean In. It's been observed that when a job posting lists 10 criteria, men apply if they meet 6. Women wait until they tick all 10. Over the last few years, I've looked at job postings that I knew that I was a shoo-in for. And even though I thought that I would be phenomenal for the job, there would be 1 or 2 criteria that I didn't quite fully meet. And time again, my husband urged me to go for it anyway, citing the same bit of information about men versus women when it comes to job applications. Even though most of the time I would have been excellent for the job, I never apply because I can't get past the idea of not ticking all of the boxes. Is that just because I like to follow the rules, or is it because I've programmed myself to believe that I'm not enough? Maybe it's a little bit of both. When I first started Postscript, I would go to networking events and introduce myself by saying who I was and that I'm just starting out, or minimizing my work by kind of waving my hand around and saying that I was vaguely in the business of helping people start businesses, without actually conveying the importance and magnitude of what I do. Do I own my own business? Yes. Do I help an underserved portion of the population grow into all of their potential? Heck yes. Do I stand behind them as their cheerleading squad and emotional support system as often as I possibly can? Also, yes. Super important things for women to have, right? Right. So why can't I show up for myself in the same way? Why can't I shout it from the rooftops? Why am I using words like just and small as if they were shields against judgment, either real, perceived, or totally in my head? Well, because in my mind, they protect me from judgment if someone thought my business wasn't enough. I expect that people will think that my business isn't good enough. So my defense mechanism in the past has been to lower expectations. They give me an exit strategy if things don't work out. But here's what social learning theory tells us. Every time I used those words, I was teaching my daughter that women should make themselves smaller, that we should apologize for taking up space, that we should prepare for failure before we even give ourselves a chance to succeed. There's a concept called linguistic downsizing that fits perfectly with this theory. It's when we use language to make ourselves appear smaller or less significant. Those words that I was using as a shield, just, only, small, little, and phrases like, I'm no expert, but, or this might be silly, but. We all do it. I catch myself doing it multiple times a day. And what's fascinating is that research shows women use these linguistic downsizers significantly more than men do. It's as if we've been conditioned to ask permission before we share our thoughts or claim our own accomplishments. The social learning theory teaches us that our children learn to minimize themselves by watching us, their mothers, their teachers, the adult women in their lives do it to ourselves. We model it, and quite often without realizing we're doing it. So something to ponder here. I won't ask you to write anything down right now because you might be driving or running errands while listening, but I invite you to become a little bit of a sleuth in your own life. For the next day, just take notice. Notice when you use some of that qualifying language about yourself. Notice when you apologize for things that aren't actually your fault. Notice when you downplay something that you've accomplished. Just notice. Don't judge yourself for it, though. One thing that's worth noting is that awareness is always the first step to course correction. Now let's talk about those mirror neurons that I mentioned in the introduction. This is where the science gets really fascinating. Mirror neurons are specialized brain cells that fire both when we perform an action ourselves and when we observe someone else performing that same action. Essentially, they create a biological basis for empathy and learning through observation. Children are incredibly perceptive, and these mirror neurons are working overtime in their developing brains. They pick up on everything, and not just what we say directly to them, but how we move through the world too. When your child sees you look in the mirror and frown, their mirror neurons actually fire in a way that helps them experience what you're feeling. What are they learning about body image? When they hear you dismiss a compliment about your work, those same neurons fire. What are they learning about perceived praise? When they watch you guard yourself in social gatherings, again, mirror neurons at work. What are they learning about using their voice? I had a moment last month when my daughter was getting ready for school, and she looked in the mirror and said, "I don't like my hair today." The words were eerily familiar because they were my own. I've long criticized my hair. As I age, it's getting brittler, thinner, duller. And truth be told, I don't always have the bandwidth to blow dry and make it pretty. And I've always been pretty vocal about how I don't like my hair. I've said that exact same thing. Ugh, I don't like my hair today. Time and time again. I've cursed my flyaways, of which my beautiful baby girl has many of. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. She's internalizing my relationship with myself. As mamas, this is the last thing that we want for our babes. We see them for the beautiful, brilliant creatures they are, and they may see themselves as we see ourselves. And to parrot my dear friend, that's not cool. It actually goes deeper than just copying our behavior. Research shows that mirror neurons help children develop their understanding of social norms, emotional responses, and self-concept. Our children's self-image literally begins as a neurological reflection of how they see us treat ourselves. It's not just about telling them they're wonderful, but it's also about our brains showing their brains what self-worth looks like in action. There's fascinating research on this from psychologists who study child development. They found that by age 5, children have already developed substantial understanding of gender roles and expectations. By age 7, many girls already report feeling less confident than boys in certain domains. By adolescence, these patterns are deeply entrenched in their neural pathways. Scary, eh? But here's the hopeful part. Because of neuroplasticity, that's the brain's ability to rewire itself, these researchers have also found that one of the strongest predictors of a child's self-esteem is not what their parents tell them, but how their parents, especially same-gender parents, model self-regard. So if we start to model positive self-regard, then they may absorb that from us, and then the tides can start turning. Now let's talk about my old friend, Mr. Imposter Syndrome. What's fascinating is how imposter syndrome manifests differently across gender lines. Research shows that men and women tend to experience confidence differently depending on the domain. In areas traditionally coded as masculine, like negotiating, sports, technical skills, or financial decisions, women often underestimate their abilities, even when they're highly competent. I've experienced this firsthand in many instances. Despite having proven results and knowing my worth, I've found myself accepting lower offers or giving discounts on rates that I fully deserved. Meanwhile, more than just my husband are baffled by this. But in the interest of full transparency, that confidence in a negotiation setting has never come naturally to me. Mr. Imposter Syndrome is always whispering in my brain, who do you think you are to charge that much? This isn't because women are inherently less confident. It's because we've been socialized differently. From childhood, many girls are praised for being accommodating, for being team players, for not making waves, while boys are often encouraged to take risks, to assert themselves, and to claim victory. And y'all, this feeling doesn't just stem from having older male managers with antiquated views. I once had a female manager tell me that because I had taken so much leave that I was entitled to while my child was in the hospital, that she probably wouldn't approve my annual leave that I was also entitled to during the summer because she felt like I hadn't been enough of a team player while my kid was sick. If your reaction to hearing that is as visceral as my feeling of disgust I had when I told you that story, I don't blame you. Who are we as women to perpetuate or make worse those feelings of low self-value, especially when women have so much to contend with to begin with? We should be building each other up, raising our self-confidence, our self-worth in each other every single day with megaphones. Think about it. How often have you heard a woman preface her opinion in a meeting with, "This might be wrong, but," or "I'm not an expert, but"? Now think about how often you've heard a male do the same. Megaphones, ladies. What's interesting is that in domains related to relationships, emotional intelligence, and certain types of multitasking, women often show more confidence than men. But Society tends to value and reward confidence in those traditionally masculine domains more highly. As mothers raising the next generation, we have a unique opportunity and responsibility to challenge these patterns. We can recognize imposter syndrome for what it is, not as truth, but more like a story that we've been told or that we tell ourselves and have internalized. We can model confidence in areas where women have traditionally been taught to doubt themselves. I'm telling you, megaphones. Now, more than ever, is the time we need to start showing up for ourselves and each other so that we can show up for our children, yeah? The fourth concept I introduced earlier was generational self-image, which is how our sense of self and worth gets passed down through generations. As I said, many of us were raised in homes, cultures, or communities where modesty was and still is expected. I think about this in terms of my own mother, who is unequivocally the most brilliant, capable, and smart woman who is a paragon of generosity and love, but who can, at times, diminish herself. When I was a kid doing homework, she'd say, "Oh, you're so smart, Christy. I'm not good at math." She'd say that even though she managed our family finances and made sure to take care that we had enough of everything. And today she balances multi-million-dollar budgets. Today she says, "Oh, you're so smart, Christy. You're always on par with the latest technology. I can barely figure out how to change the background in Canva." You guys, my mom is brilliant. She's had to learn new systems for her job that I can't even begin to wrap my head around. Have you noticed how she's always lifting me up, but she also puts herself down? I've said this a few times. My mom is my loudest cheerleader. She makes sure her message is spread far and wide, and yet I still have terrible self-confidence issues. At times, I've experienced imposter syndrome with her praise, and at times, I've internalized generations worth of self-image issues. Mom, if you're listening, you're brilliant. I love you, and I'll always help you with your Adobe issues. And also, you're brilliant, even though Canva gives you the cold sweats. What possibilities are we accidentally closing off when we internalize those pesky generational issues? Being an expat adds another layer to this conversation about generational patterns. Many of us are raising our children between cultures, navigating different expectations and norms. In some cultures, humility is prized above all else. In others, confidence is celebrated. Here in Abu Dhabi, we're building businesses and raising families in a multicultural environment. We're often far from our own support networks, figuring things out as we go, and that can amplify our insecurities. But it also gives us an opportunity to break generational patterns. We're already rewriting the rules by living abroad, by starting businesses, by creating new communities. We can also rewrite the internal scripts that we've inherited about confidence and self-worth. My daughter will inherit many things from our family line, but I hope that this shrinking, this self-diminishment will not be one of them. The fifth concept that I introduced was cognitive dissonance. Remember the internal tug of war between what we say we believe and how we actually behave? I believe that I'm pretty good at what I do. Nevertheless, 95% of the time I preface my spiels with, "I'm not an expert, but," or "I'm not 100% sure, but," as if I'm disclaiming myself. Once again, I use the disclaimers as a shield. Why? I'll tell you why. For a good 10 years of my career, I worked right beside a bunch of scientists who would say, "Nothing is certain. So we must always use may or potential, and we have to be very careful with our words when we express data and thoughts to others. Everything is subject to interpretation." That is now ingrained in my DNA. So how do we actually change? How do we align our words and actions to model true confidence? Here are some approaches that have helped me reduce this cognitive dissonance. Sometimes when I'm being hard on myself, I ask myself, would I say this to my best friend? If the answer is no, I try very hard not to say it to myself either. And now I try harder not to say anything like that in front of my kids. Sometimes, not always, I'm also a work in progress. When I catch myself modeling poor self-talk, I'll correct it out loud. Actually, let me rephrase that. I'm not bad at writing. I just have a touch of brain fog today, and tomorrow will be better. This has the possibility of showing our children that we can recognize negative patterns and actively change them. In areas where I have genuine knowledge and experience, I'm practicing phrases like, based on my experience, or in my professional opinion, rather than hedging or undermining my own authority. These shifts don't happen overnight, okay? They take practice and conscious effort. But each time we choose to align our words with our true capabilities, we're showing our kids what internal consistency looks like. We're showing them that it's possible to speak about yourself with the same kindness and respect that you offer to others. Now that we've explored these 5 concepts, social learning theory, mirror neurons, imposter syndrome, generational self-image, and cognitive dissonance, I want to emphasize something important. Confidence does not mean never doubting yourself. It doesn't mean being loud or dominating every room either. Confidence is saying, I don't know the answer, but let me find out. Confidence is admitting when you've made a mistake. Confidence is setting boundaries around your time and your energy. Confidence is allowing yourself to be a beginner at something new. What's striking to me is how confidence manifests itself differently across cultures. Here in Abu Dhabi, we're living in a melting pot of cultural perspectives on confidence and humility. Some cultures value guarded strength and others prize vocal certainty. There's beauty in this diversity, and it gives us an opportunity to adopt a more expansive definition of what confidence looks like. As expat women, we have the unique privilege of witnessing all of these different models of confidence and choosing which elements resonate with us. We can be thoughtful curators of our own confidence style by borrowing what works and leaving what doesn't, and creating something authentic for ourselves. And most importantly, confidence is treating yourself with the same kindness and respect that you'd show a dear friend or your child. It's recognizing that you're worthy of your own compassion. Before we wrap up, I want to share one practice. It's simple, but I think it's profound. Let's call it the legacy exercise. Imagine your child, now grown. They're being interviewed about the most important lessons that they've learned from you. What would you want them to say about how you carried yourself, how you spoke about yourself, what you taught them about their own worth? Take a moment to really visualize this. Maybe your child is now 25 or 30. They're sitting across from someone who asks, what did you learn from your family about confidence and self-worth? What words would make your heart swell with pride to hear them say? My mom taught me that it's okay to be myself. My mom showed me that women can be business owners. My mom demonstrated that making mistakes doesn't diminish your worth. My mom helped me understand that confidence comes from self-compassion, not perfection. Whatever you hope they'd say about what you taught them, try to use that as your roadmap for yourself. That's what you need to actively model and embody now. Again, this exercise isn't about perfection. It's about intention. It's about recognizing that you're not just raising a child, but a future adult who'll carry your lessons forward. I invite you to sit down with this visualization when you're alone. Let it guide your choices when you're tempted to speak harshly about yourself. Let it strengthen your resolve when cultural or social pressures nudge you towards self-diminishment. Not just for your children's sake, but for your own as well. As I wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with a thought that has been anchoring me lately in more ways than one. Our children will rarely do as we say. They will almost always do as we do. We can tell our daughters and sons 1,000 times that they're worthy, that they're enough, that they deserve to take up space in the world. But if they see us diminish ourselves, Which message do you think will stick? This is not meant to add pressure to the already demanding role of motherhood. It's about liberation, freeing ourselves from the patterns that have kept us feeling minuscule, and in doing so, freeing our children too. I'd love to hear how this episode has landed with you. What areas do you find yourself lacking confidence in? Where have you noticed your self-talk influencing your children? I'd love for you to share your thoughts on Instagram. You can tag me at postscript.ae in a story or a post, or you can absolutely send me a DM if you prefer to share in private. I want to keep a conversation going around this because I know that I'm not the only one navigating these waters. Remember, we are all works in progress. The goal is not perfection, it's progress. And as we all know, progress isn't a magical linear process. It's messy. And every time you choose more compassionate self-talk, you're helping yourself at the same time as helping shape your children's story too. Well, everyone, as usual, you've all been a fantastic audience. Thank you for bending your ear for me. I appreciate you all so very much. Until next time, please keep moving forward, one messy but compassionate step at a time. Bye, everyone.